So just before the video starts, I wanted to give a quick shout out to what is quite possibly the most apt sponsorship I've ever come across for Vivek. Oftentimes I'll decline, 99.9% of sponsorship deals I come across, because I just don't think Raid Shadow Legends is very appropriate for the sort of content on this channel. But I know a lot of you like to fall asleep to these report videos, and that's why I thought these COZYSNUG sleep earbuds from LYTMI really are a match made in heaven for this channel and its viewers. If you're anything like me, you might struggle falling to sleep on your back with conventional earbuds in. I'd always wondered whether there were any designs that facilitated side sleeping without waking up with a perforated eardrum. Not only do these earbuds work wonders for side sleepers, they boast high quality audio, are super lightweight and soft with various different sizes of ear wings to pick and choose from, on top of having 21 hours of charge when using the charging case. So, now you can all quickly and smoothly fall asleep listening to me recount the usual litany of mind-bending, reality-shattering experiences that we all know and love. If you're interested, please check out the link in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code VIVEK for 10% off your order. Anyway, we'll crack on with the video now, but be sure to let me know what you thought of the earbuds if you do end up snatching yourself a pair, and thank you to LYTMI for reaching out, I really appreciate it. Set the controls for the heart of the man. A DOM trip report by 77k. Posted to EARBUDS.org October 5th, 2000. I'd been fairly certain ever since I got to Burning Man that I would save the DOM for the night of the burn. My one past experience with DOM was at a dosage level that was slightly too low, at 7mg, but I could see that it was a drug of the absolute highest quality, in the same class as LSD, mushrooms, etc. It would be perfect for Saturday night. I have to begin by giving a summary of the other drugs I did at Burning Man, because any professional drug user at Burning Man needs to put serious thought into day-to-day cross-tolerance. Tuesday was 2CB, Wednesday was merely GHB, Thursday was LSD and MDMA, Friday was mushrooms. I figured that I had abstained from the phenethylamines for a few days, so my 11.3mg of DOM wouldn't be too diminished. Looking back, I would say that the 11.3mg was weakened a little, but the level was still very good. Now, I need to describe the set and setting. The setting, of course, is Burning Man. Within 18 hours of arriving on the desert, I had completely and transparently suspended all disbelief at what I was experiencing. The sheer improbability of this city existing on a scorched alkali plain in Nevada set a base level of improbability for everything else within the city. It was not possible to shake the feeling that this was a complete fantasy land. I had a couple of artworks that I'd brought with me. I had a hard time getting them set up and working properly. It took several days. And I was disappointed that other people there seemed to have ones that were similar and possibly superior to mine. I was upset that sometimes my art didn't work quite right, and I couldn't figure out why it didn't work. I was a little moody for my first couple of days there. Gradually, and with the aid of other psychedelics, I started to tap into the collective unconscious of Black Rock City. Once my art was set up and semi-working, people started to talk to me about it. They told me why they liked it and asked me how I did it, and their completely genuine interest in me and my vision began to lift my spirits. I began to understand how Burning Man is not a place to show off your skills, it's a place to express yourself, and to see how 28,000 other people choose to express themselves as well. By looking at the limitless types of art around you, you can truly see the infinite expanse of human creativity. It is both humbling and inspiring in a way so fundamental that it is almost impossible to ignore. Now that Saturday had rolled around, I'd completed my transition from a spectator to a participant. Instead of looking at the city and its citizens as something new to explore with caution, I understood how it was my city, and how my presence there was as important to the greater whole as anyone else's. I felt the freedom to walk down any street and talk to anyone I met. They were my neighbours and friends. I finally felt like I was in the right mindset to experience the burn. I also felt like I was in the right mindset to let the ritual permeate my soul while I was tripping my ass off. Something I was not entirely sure of until today. At 4:30 PM, I ate 11.3mg of DOM on a fairly empty stomach. Several friends also took DOM. Others took 2CB, LSD, mushrooms, 2CT7, MDMA, MDA, and more I'm sure I forgot. Virtually every one of my companions had taken some psychedelic of sorts. The hours ticked by towards sunset. I had my first alert within half an hour, and by about 1 hour I was unquestionably tripping. The intensity increased extremely smoothly across the next 2 hours, and near sunset, at 7:30 or so, I had just about reached the peak. Fluid colours rippled across surfaces, objects squished and breathed. Music from our reasonably beefy stereo system seemed quieter and distant, but the music itself seemed alien and infused with meaning. The temperature dropped and the wind picked up. I realised that I could hear sounds around me in the greatest detail, and I could localise and recognise noises that came from more than half a mile away across the player. At dusk, the excitement in our camp became palpable. Everyone was rushing around getting their things ready, dressing warmly, smoking pot, getting a bite to eat. I felt my mood elevated and my body energised from the amphetamine lurking inside the DOM's molecular structure. A searing red warning flare shot into the sky. 30 minutes until the burn. The time flew by, and before we knew it, another flare. We had to get out to the man immediately. A part of our group left. We reached Headway, the inner circular road closest to the man, and I saw that the man's arms had raised towards the sky. I started to run, fast, towards the man. This was a completely unconscious reaction. I neither told myself to run, nor could I have stopped it. It pulled me like a magnet, and I could not take my eyes off of it. Soon, I reached the circle of thousands of people who were sitting and standing, waiting and cheering. It was around this time that I realised I didn't feel like I was tripping anymore. I didn't see waving objects or rippling colour. Things sounded normal. The panorama before my eyes was so far beyond the surreal that my brain did not care it was awash in DOM. Almost immediately, the pyrotechnics began. 100 fire dancers circled in the space between the celebrants and the man, making a blurry, dizzying array of flaming yellow trails. Drums thundered from all sides. The crowd was illuminated with the cool chemical radiance of thousands of glow sticks. The man ignited. Fireworks exploded out of him, and I could feel my retinas become saturated with the spectral purity of burning metal. Then, a pressurized kerosene-powered flamethrower fired off a tongue of flame. Its throttle opened all the way, and a 100-foot column of hell dwarfed the man and illuminated the player like day. An evil, black mushroom cloud drifted up, illuminated by the flamethrower's next blast. For a moment, I thought deeply about Burning Man's relationship with nature. We humans, 28,000 of us, drag our expensive toys out here into the second largest life-free flat space in the United States. The speed of sound was broken by a rocket car here on the Black Rock Desert. Burning Man does not pretend to be an event that is harmless to the environment. While we strictly adhere to the leave no trace rule, that we must leave the player in exactly the condition we found it, we run generators, drive cars, and set things on fire. We pollute the atmosphere, and although we take our trash with us, we generate just as much as when we were at home in our comfortable houses. We bask in the glory of the human species, quietly downplaying the mess we made to get to this point, and stare in slack-jawed awe at the lights of the 7-square-mile city we build from nothing. Yet the Milky Way still glitters above us, putting to shame the piddling multi-watt lasers we shoot at it, and turning away from the city one can only see an endless expanse of night. The desert is so long that the earth curves down and away by the other side. We fire off our flamethrower, and although we can feel its heat on our faces, and we vicariously experience the thrill of the man holding its throttle, to the timeless mountains around us, it is just another bit lighter of the human race. The man falls down, helped by people pulling with all their might on the cables holding him up. When he falls, the crowd rises to their feet and rushes inward, 5 feet from the foot of the fire. I'm crushed by the people around me, and am swept along as the mass of people rotates round the pyre. I'm right at the front of this core of bodies. Sweat pours off my face as 15-foot-high flames irradiate us with millions of watts of power. People chant and yell. Many have brought something symbolic to throw onto the fire. I realise that I have brought nothing. After a moment of thinking, I conclude that there really isn't anything that I would want to burn. There is nothing in my life that I can symbolize with an object, that I feel the need to cleanse myself of. This is strangely satisfying. Paramedics push past me, carrying someone who got too close to the flames. I see someone with a gigantic professional video camera, spotlight blazing, and I resist the temptation to push him to the ground. Eventually, I leave the spinning circle and drift off into the crowds farther out from what used to be the man. People dressed in suits made of blinking electroluminescent wire are all around me. As they jitter and slide across the playa, I suddenly am reminded that I am tripping. I can't put my finger on how far in front of me people are or which direction they're headed. There is just a swirl of dazzling points of light all around me. Soon after that, I realise that I do not exactly know where I am. I can see the Church of Mez's tower in the distance, but I still don't know how far away from it I am. In fact, I no longer feel exactly like myself. I'm traipsing around with a confidence that I have rarely known. I feel free to approach works of art and let them communicate with me. A throbbing, propane-powered organ mounted on a silver car speaks a chaotic language of thumps, wheezes, and hisses. I rub shoulders with people I have never met and will never meet again. I take a swig of some unknown alcoholic beverage from some guy who offered me some. This is more than just a mood alteration. A portion of my ego has slipped away and I didn't even notice. It's not just the DOM's doing. It is the mind-bending improbability of Burning Man that has chipped away at anything I could use as a frame of reference. I hear a hissing, crackling, buzzing noise in the distance. Even though I can't see where it's coming from, my DOMized ears instantly recognize the sound of electrons being ripped from their subshells. Dr. Megavolt is here, and I run towards his truck with 2 Tesla coils on top, and as it fires off again, shooting 12-foot streamers of energy through the atmosphere, I feel a wave of pure euphoria wash over me. The spotlights illuminating the coils are unreal, and the discharges themselves cast dancing, vibrating shadows for hundreds of feet around. Dr. Megavolt himself gets up on top of the truck in his protective metal suit, and lightning bolts strike his head. I yell madly in praise of this human who built a giant machine that flexes, stretches, whacks, and smashes the electromagnetic field. Dr. Megavolt is absolutely the icing on the Burning Man cake. The absurdity of a man who calls himself Dr. Megavolt standing next to an absolutely lethal piece of electrical equipment on top of his tractor-trailer to the cheers of hundreds of tripping people in the desert is just totally ridiculous. I wandered towards the Black Light District to give the DOM visuals a fighting chance. I approached the glowing, bright outer sculptures and stared into them. Patterns appeared on their surfaces, and they stretched a little. As I walked past them, my eyes readjusted to the darkness, and the whole of the Black Light District faded into view in an almost comically stereotypical tripped-out way. The deep violet of the black lights was nearly bottomless, and the fluorescent things around me almost too bright to bear. The entire scene, in fact, seemed tilted a little to the left, and the district didn't have the same proportions I'd remembered from before. Beautiful music flowed from an iridescent stage. There was a crowd of ghostly-looking people watching the stage, and when I stared at their faces, I could sense their thoughts. I watched the way their eyes moved, and the light that glittered off their corneas, and I felt them drinking deeply of the scene before them. I sensed the common consciousness among us, and the contours of this shared hallucination. Save for the music, the Blacklight District was nearly silent, populated by mute spirits, circling around in awe. I was getting pretty cold at this point, so I stood, mesmerised by a fire for a few minutes, and then headed back to my camp. When I arrived, I met up with a friend who had taken DOM for the first time and was having a fantastic trip. We decided to gather together a larger group and visit some of the nightclubs along the Esplanade. Now the city had turned from an all-out tribal extravaganza into the greatest party on earth. The DOM followed in stride. I was not the slightest bit exhausted and was ready to go out dancing and partying for more hours. We had a couple of rave camps and I was sucked in by the music and started dancing. I stood 5 feet away from the beam of a 10-watt argon laser and watched the playa dust flash with the glitter of blue diamonds. I was introduced to people who came along for the walk with us and I felt like they were good friends. The pervasive optimism and joy among the people I met is unlike anything I think I will ever see again. By the time we decided we should make the 1.5-mile walk back across the open playa to our camp, every negative thought had been wiped clean from my brain. I'd been filled with the pure euphoria of a person who had experienced paradise, and I was still smack in the middle of it. We arrived back at our camp, and it was now clearly time for more drugs. I drank some GHB and started smoking pot. Then, out came the crate of whippets. I initially started off slowly, and I found the nitrous plus DOM combination to be very much like acid in terms of both the visuals it produced, regular repeating patterns, texture mapped across everything in sight, and the mental state I found myself in. As I started to inhale more nitrous and as the GHB came on, the nitrous space was getting freakier and freakier. I once again felt my ego slipping away. Time slowed to a crawl, and my ears tuned in to different sounds around me that phased in and out. I started to think about the big questions. In the context of the evolution of the human race, what is the significance of Burning Man? What the hell was I doing out here? People say that Burning Man isn't as good as it used to be. Does this mean that because I think Burning Man is so great, my standards are lower than other people's? And shit, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? The answer to these questions was, I need to do more nitrous. This was not a time to be conservative with drug use. After ploughing through 30 or 40 whippets, I had taken a roller coaster ride through dozens of emotions. I had felt both what thrilled me about my life and what bummed me out. Things that bothered me were presented to me in a way that suggested I could resolve them and that I would find the right solutions. Questions that I had felt answerable. A few whippets later, I was laughing hysterically at the hopelessness of trying to understand the meaning of life. I smoked another joint, and the sun began to rise. Thoroughly baked, I wandered around a little more and checked out who was still awake. The DOM visuals were mostly gone, but there was still some stimulation and thought alteration. I gave the DOM a bit more time to wear off and then tried to go to sleep, which I did at about 7:30, T plus 15 hours, without much trouble. Next day, I woke up after well under 8 hours of sleep and spent the entire day doing physical labour tearing down our camp. I felt great. Saturday night at Burning Man was, on Shulgin's scale, a +4 experience, but the DOM on its own was only a +3. Burning Man itself is a drug that is fully on par with any psychedelic I have taken, and the unique synergy between Saturday night and the DOM was what pushed my trip over the edge into a life-changing experience. Often, people take drugs and then re-experience things they are familiar with. They listen to music they know, or they have deep conversations with people they know, or they put themselves in environments they are familiar with, like raves. But everything at Burning Man was something I was experiencing for the first time. What the DOM did for me during the burn was not just to let me see the event in an atypical way. What it did was let me see it as if I were really someone else. My memories of that night are ones whose context is not exactly in line with the context of my own ego. When I think back to it, I remember it more as a story or as a fantasy than as something I actually experienced. It was something somebody else experienced. Yet still, I have their memories, and the fact they're not mine means they'll never be lost in the mass of my many memories. They will always stand out as something extraordinary, in the most literal sense of the word. DOM, as a drug independent of Burning Man, is almost without flaw. I felt very good the next day, like I said earlier. My mood throughout the whole trip was positive, though at times I was concerned about whether I'd be able to hold my shit together, and though I sometimes didn't know exactly what to do or where to go, I still had the driving feeling of, I know I can handle this, just go for it. And the psychedelic qualities of DOM are of the breadth and depth of acid, similar hyper-awareness of music, similar visual complexity, and a totally comparable access into the crevices and beyond the bounds of the mind. The length is long, but feels just right for serious exploratory trips. It is, unfortunately, a very rare drug, but one well worth seeking out and trying. A+. 2,5-dimethoxy-4-methylamphetamine, also known as DOM and STP, or Serenity, Tranquility and Peace, is a lesser-known psychedelic substance of the amphetamine class. DOM is a member of the DOX family of compounds, which are known for their high potency, long duration, and mixture of psychedelic and stimulant effects. It produces its effects by acting on serotonin receptors in the brain. DOM was first synthesized and tested in 1963 by Alexander Shulgin. It attained some popularity during the summer of 1967 under the name STP, Serenity, Tranquility, and Peace. But its use was short-lived due to its side effects. In 1991, the synthesis and pharmacology of DOM was published in Shulgin's book, Pikal, Phenethylamines I Have Known and Loved. Over the years, DOM has gained a reputation for being a highly dose-sensitive psychedelic that is often sold on blotting paper and known for its strong visuals, body load, and neutral analytical headspace. Many reports also indicate that the effects of this chemical may be overly difficult to use for those who are not already experienced with psychedelics. Thank you to Psychonaut Wiki for the great overview of the DOM substance. I just thought it was worth mentioning that the user in this report took a dose of 11.5 milligrams, which is listed as beyond heavy in the dosage range from DOM, threshold being 0.5, light being 1 to 3, common 3 to 5, 5 to 10 strong, and 10 beyond being heavy. So, yeah, if you are going to take DOM, like any psychedelic, any substance, starting at the threshold dose is really your best way to go. I know that I sound like a broken record for anyone who consumes Vivek content in its entirety, but you've got to also acknowledge that someone might stumble upon this report who've never heard any of my other videos where I insist that you should definitely start on the lower end whenever you're trying any form of substance. Start on the threshold, maybe work to the light, common, and you don't even need to go beyond common into the strong and heavy dosages. You need to find, personally, and this is just my personal advice, everyone's different, it has to be said as well, that you will find as you go up the substances, there might be a brick wall you reach where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can actually experiment any further with this in terms of higher dosages. It might be threatening to my psyche, my sense of self. It could induce derealization, dissociation, and all these other nasty, psychological effects. It can really rear-end your whole life. You've got to be honest with yourself that there'll be a point, and this goes for every psychonaut, that there'll be a point where you just can't handle what is beyond the dosage range, where you're starting to feel maybe the anxiety of derealization coming on, or any other nasty psychological mental effects. You might get a little bit of a glimpse of them maybe in like the strong dose range of testing out DOM, and the worst thing you can do is, goes without saying, but keep advancing up the dosage range, because if you're not actually psychologically prepared for it, or even physically prepared for it, you're going to have a bad time. So you just got to approach psychedelics with as much patience and consciousness and wisdom as any other area of life, really. And just be honest with yourself that there's some things in life that you just can't achieve. I can't go to the gym right now and bench press 5 million kilograms, but I can work out within the confines of my own physical being and my own willpower and drive, and I can keep working that muscle up, literally the muscle of being able to bench press weights, a bit like in comparison to the muscle of just your mind's capability to experience drastically altered states of mind. It's something that you definitely work on, but you also shouldn't punish yourself for like, oh, I'm not capable of experiencing higher dose states, this must mean I'm not psychologically consciously developed like other people. You need to stop comparing yourself to other people in that sense, and it's not a competition to see how many people can take the most psychedelics and the highest doses, and when you start treating it like that, that's when the purity and beauty of using psychedelics for your own personal development gets thrown out the window. So it's just something that you should be aware of, I believe. Just a few thoughts on Burning Man. I've never actually been there myself, but the experience of Burning Man that this reporter described is very akin to my own experience at Boomtown Festival and many other festivals I've been to, but that feeling of psychedelic transcendence that your literal environment imbues within you has never been so beautifully epitomized as my experiences at Boomtown. 100%. It really does feel like, as this reporter described, stepping into a fantasy land within your own literal sober consciousness. Obviously people will take psychedelics at any festival, especially Burning Man, and just any festival in general, any party event. People love to catalyse their own enjoyment by using substances, but just actually being in the presence of something so absolutely mind-blowing and fantastical is like a psychedelic experience in and of itself. And much like how he described, my experiences and memories of Boomtown don't almost feel like my own. I feel like I was stepping into another version of myself, very much foreign to my normal egoic state of consciousness. And yeah, it can really inspire feelings of transcendence, interconnectedness, community, just all the most beautiful aspects of being human. And yeah, they are highlighted at beautiful festivals like Boomtown and Burning Man and any other event or party setting that celebrates the human experience of treating life as the party that it can be. I'd love to go to Burning Man one day, but that's definitely many years off for me. So many things I would love to do, so many places I'd love to go, like Tomorrowland, Burning Man, all these amazing like raves and festivals, but they're so far away from me. But I'm very grateful for the fact that I'm able to experience some absolutely mind-boggling festivals within the confines of the UK. I mean, we have some of the best festivals ever, I believe. Boomtown, Beat Herder, Rosa Festival. Just, I mean, every festival I've ever been to really just moves me in ways I can't even describe. It's truly ineffable and must be experienced, very much like the psychedelic state that we can describe with words, but experiencing that in your own direct consciousness is just something else entirely. So yep, it was interesting to cover DOM yet again. I'd love to cover more of the psychedelic amphetamines. I find them really fascinating, and I've only done a few videos on them, so if you'd like to hear more about the DOX family of compounds, then please leave me a comment. And again, if you've got any other obscure, lesser-known psychedelics that you'd like me to cover, please comment that as well. And thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my Patreon, support me on there if you so wish. And thank you once again for listening to me ramble in the commentary sections. I know some people don't like the commentary sections, but I feel that they're worth sharing in some of the videos. Sometimes I feel like I don't need to actually comment on stuff. Sometimes I feel like reports just speak for themselves. But when I cover stuff like DOM, which most people don't know about, I think it's essential to share more information about them. And sometimes reports just have little aspects that I'd like to expand upon, especially if I can relate to them, like in this person's experience of Burning Man and how it made them feel. Because yeah, festivals, what are they? Yeah, they're a celebration of life, and psychedelics can be a celebration of life, and when they're synergized, it can really just produce some truly ascendant feelings of unity that we so much strive to experience through all of our psychedelic trips. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the other side. Take care and look forward to the next one.